questions.
Honourable Leader of Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, I have given notice of the following private notice question addressed to Dr. the Honourable Prime Minister, Minister of Defence, Home Affairs and External Communications, Minister of Finance, Minister for Rodrigues and Outer Islands. Whether in regard to the value of the Mauritian rupee on the foreign exchange market and the resulting impact thereof on the Mauritius inflation rate, he will state the measures taken to redress the situation, if any. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker.
Prime Minister.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, as I've stated several times in this House, the previous government, excuse my voice, Mr. Deputy Speaker, has fumbled and jumbled all the economic fundamentals. Let me dwell again on the legacy that the previous government left us. They relied excessively on money printing to finance the budget deficit. The Bank of Mauritius injected a total amount of 180 billion rupees into the banking system to fund government spending and finance the Mauritius Investment Corporation. This, Mr. Deputy Speaker, added massively to the excess liquidity that in turn contributed to the high levels of inflation. And we experienced this significant depreciation of the rupee. The excess liquidity was at an all-time high of around 90 billion rupees in August 2023. The massive amount of excess liquidity in the system and the very, I could say, accommodating monetary policy stance of the Bank of Mauritius led to wide interest rate differentials between instruments dominated in rupees compared to those denominated in US dollars. This excess liquidity in the system is still present in the system, although at a much lower level, and is costing the Bank of Mauritius, because they have to mop up this excess liquidity. It's costing us, the Bank of Mauritius, 4 billion rupees annually, just for the mopping up of this excess liquidity. Now, while the experts advocated for an increase in the key rate, which at the time was 4.50%, in September 2024, the previous government, in spite of the experts asking to increase the rate, they decided, contrary to expert advice, with a reduction, to go for a reduction in the rate to 4%. So lower returns coming from domestic money market are the result of the massive excess liquidity we've seen over the past years. This has contributed to negative interest rate differentials, as I said, against with currencies such as the US dollars, and this obviously would lead to a weakening of the rupee because we import most of the things in dollars. As a result, the inflation rate reached a peak of 11.3% in February 2023, while the rupee itself depreciated by 46%, Mr. Deputy Speaker, against the US dollars between the end of December 2014 to November 2024. On a cumulative basis, inflation increased by 46.5%. Now, the trade deficit was at a high of 180 billion, or 28.2% of GDP in 2023, and it worsened further to 207.8 billion rupees, or 29.9% of GDP in 2024, as the result of an economic model which was based on reckless consumption and imports. That was the model they chose. It was exacerbated by the money illusion created by the previous government with the proliferation of various types of allowances and an unprecedented and unjustifying money printing. Now, nonetheless, the headline inflation rate is at 2.9% for the 12-month period ending June 2025, compared to 4.5% in June 2024. We're speaking of the headline inflation rate. We expect the inflation rate for this year to be below 4%, that is within the target of the Bank of Mauritius. I must say, Mr. Deputy Speaker, there was a recent increase in inflation rate in June of 2025. There was a small peak. This is mainly due to the price increases from the budget of alcoholic beverages and tobacco. Excluding these products, the CPI index remained the same as in May 2025. Mr. Deputy Speaker, as I've always said, we cannot undo the disastrous results of 10 years of reckless economic mismanagement in this short period of time. When we took office, we have changed the direction of travel, if I may say so. We are changing the economic model from the one highly dependent on consumption and imports to one driven by investment, exports, and innovation. Now, let me come to some of the measures taken by both the government and the Bank of Mauritius to stabilize the value of the rupee. First, in December 2024, the Bank of Mauritius issued instructions to banks to ensure that all dealings in Forex, including swaps and other derivatives, should be effected through financial institutions which are licensed by the Bank of Mauritius, not outside. Banks were also requested to enhance due diligence on intercompany buying and selling of foreign currencies, as well as swaps and other derivatives. The reason behind these measures was to prevent a parallel market, which caused distortions in the pricing and drove Forex inflows away from the official market. The second thing they did was in February 2025, the key rate was increased from 4% to 4.5%, what the expert had said in September of last year. Thirdly, another instructions to bank was that forward transactions should be priced in a fair manner and in accordance with market fundamentals, as some sellers of the Forex market were imposing excessively high forward premia, which was against market conventions. Fourth, the regulatory arbitrage between the Financial Services Commission and the Bank of Mauritius regarding the purchase and sale of Forex by treasury management companies was discontinued totally. Fifth, the Bank of Mauritius has monthly meeting with the treasurers of banks through the Mauritius Financial Markets Committee. It is important to note, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that as a result of the removal of these dysfunctions, that the rupee stabilized on a trade-weighted basis. However, due to movements in international markets, the rupee has appreciated against the dollar by some 4.8%, and it has depreciated against the euro and the pound sterling. It is good to recall that the bulk of our imports are dollar-dominated. Mr. Deputy Speaker, allow me to detail some other measures we have taken to tackle inflation. First, the reduction in fuel prices by 5 rupees per litre in December 2024. Second, we have introduced targeted price controls on essential food products. Third, the markups were limited to between 25 and 30% in Mauritius and 5 to 8% in Rodrigues, effectively preventing speculative pricing. Fourth, we have removed VAT on a number of basic necessities in the budget, including frozen and canned vegetables, infant nutrition products, and baby food items that had become increasingly unaffordable due to imported inflation and currency depreciation. This measure translated into a direct 15% reduction in retail prices applied immediately. Fifth, we have introduced strict enforcement and monitoring by the Ministry of Commerce. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, as announced in the budget, we have set up a price stabilization fund of 10 billion rupees with an initial contribution of 2 billion rupees. The Ministry of Commerce and the STC are working on how to operate the fund. We are changing the economic paradigm from one that relied excessively on consumption, imports, and money illusion to one anchored on investment, exports of goods and services, innovation, and technology. We also need to produce more locally and lower the import bill. We also need to produce more domestic clean energy and lower the trade deficit. In addition, we have to lower the fiscal deficit and the borrowing requirements and the debt to GDP. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir. I thank the Honourable Prime Minister for his reply. My first question to the Honourable Prime Minister, after he has given a series of measures taken by the Bank of Mauritius, whether he is satisfied with a strategy adopted by the Bank of Mauritius to ensure that inflation expectations are solidly anchored and exchange rate pressures are contained, to use the words of the Monetary Policy Committee of the Bank of Mauritius, whether he is satisfied with the strategy.
I must say we're going in the right direction, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and I'm glad you mentioned expected inflation rate, because that is very important. Very often people react not on the inflation rate, but what it will be in the future. So I'm very satisfied with how it is going, because we're bringing it down.
Yes. Can the Honourable Prime Minister inform the House the number of times the Bank of Mauritius has intervened on the foreign exchange market since December 2024, and the amounts of money that have been injected each time?
I think I mentioned, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that actually the Bank of Mauritius has annually so far, up to now, 4 billion rupees intervened on the market to mop up this excess liquidity.
Can the Honourable Prime Minister inform the House whether during that same period the amount of foreign currency that has been made available to the different commercial banks in the country, and specifying which banks, which commercial banks, if you have the answer?
I wouldn't be able to specify which banks, but I know measures have been taken. But as I said, this has been created over 10 years, so we are trying to adjust. But it is more foreign currencies available today than it was last year. But it's going to take some more time.
The situation is different, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir. Today, SMEs have to wait for almost 2 weeks to have access to foreign currency, and this ongoing currency shortage is affecting mainly import businesses, Honourable Prime Minister. May I ask you, Honourable Prime Minister, whether anybody from the government or from the Bank of Mauritius has met with importers, trade operators and representatives of commercial banks, at least to understand the Forex shortage and try to find practical solutions, Honourable Prime Minister?
I thought I addressed the question. What the Honourable Leader of the Opposition doesn't seem to remember. SMEs at the time, when you were in government, they were not getting any foreign currency. None at all. Not that they have to wait for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, they were not getting anything. That is why we're taking measures to correcting this. And as I said, the inflation rate is going down, the depreciation of the rupee is going down against the dollar especially, and we import everything in dollars.
Can the Honourable Prime Minister inform the House whether he is aware of the unofficial forward pricing practice for major currencies being used by some commercial banks, which is well over and above the consolidated indicative exchange rates of the Bank of Mauritius? And may I ask him what is being done by government to put an end to such extortionate practices?
I did mention, Mr. Deputy Speaker, the measures that the Bank of Mauritius are taking. For example, there is a regular arbitrage between the Financial Services Commission and the Bank of Mauritius regarding the purchase and the sale of Forex by treasury management companies. They are looking into this constantly, daily.
May I ask the Honourable Prime Minister whether he is aware this time of accusations of serious hoarding of foreign currency by some companies, and whether, with a view to address this problem, government is envisaging introducing legislation?
We are introducing legislation, in fact, today, to make sure that we can track what is happening, the financial crimes. This is what we're doing today. But if the Honourable Leader of the Opposition can be specific, I will take note of it.
Your answer is not related to the question I asked you, Honourable Prime Minister. With regard to inflation, can the Honourable Prime Minister provide to the House a forecast of the inflation rate until the end of this year, at least?
I can forecast, but the economy is not a stable thing that you can forecast exactly. But I can tell you, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I can tell the Leader of the Opposition, three things have created this problem. First of all, the budget deficit has been allowed to grow. The borrowing requirement, you know, the borrowing requirement is practically 10% of GDP, which is terrible at the time. And also this massive trade deficit, which is 30% of GDP. That is why we have forecast that the inflation rate will be around 4%, perhaps less, by the end of this term, about this year.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, according to the Bank of Mauritius' latest figures, real estate contribution amounted to 24 billion of gross foreign direct investment, no, 32 billion of gross foreign investment in 2024 through IRS, RES, PDS and Smart City scheme. Yet, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, there is body of evidence that some or most of the Forex gains are kept offshore. Has government considered introducing the necessary measures or legislation that require villa prices to be quoted, because it is quoted in foreign currency, to be quoted in Mauritian rupees, so that prospective buyers would need to convert foreign currency into rupees to pay for their property?
In fact, these measures were encouraged by the previous government. I can't understand why the Leader of the Opposition doesn't seem to realize. They were given every kind of tax relief that you can think of. Yeah, we have changed. We have changed in the budget. There is no such tax relief. We have grandfathers the measure, but that's it. There will be no more from the new ones. And also, they've kept the money abroad at the time. Now we are saying that we have to go by what the Bank of Mauritius is saying.
Honourable Jival, the question.
Will the Honourable Prime Minister concede that despite his pledge to reverse the depreciation of the rupee, the Bank of Mauritius monetary policy has fallen short? In fact, upon taking office, the rate was 46 rupees and is now 45.41. When the depreciation of a US dollar has seen unprecedented, has fallen in value, historically fallen since 1973 to 10% of its value, so historically low. And I will ask him, therefore, can he state what is, with regards to the lack of supply of US liquidity on the domestic market, can he state what is, as at present, the volume which is being demanded in demand and the volume which is being able to be supplied as at present in Mauritius by the Bank of Mauritius?
The Honourable member doesn't seem to realize what mess they've made for the 10 years. This is what we are correcting, my dear friend. You can't... What you're saying... Le Honorable veut le beurre, l'argent du beurre, la vache et la femme du fermier aussi.
Whether he can state, my question is whether the Honourable Prime Minister can give the figures to the House of the volume of demand for the US dollar as at now and the supply which is being able to be provided by the Bank of Mauritius as at today.
The volume varies from day to day, Mr. Deputy Speaker. And as I said, I did enumerate the measures that the Bank of Mauritius is taking to clear that mess that they left.
Honourable Leader of Opposition.
Yes, one last question. Honourable Deputy Speaker, sir, with regard to the NLP situation prevailing at the head of the Bank of Mauritius between the director and one of his deputy concerning the nomination of Mr. Binik as chairperson of SBM, which is now public
But this
domain.
has, excuse me, Honourable Leader of Opposition.
You will agree on
this
Prime
is not,
Minister
this has nothing
that
to do with the PNQ.
This current crisis will definitely affect the credibility of the Bank of Mauritius. Will the Honourable Prime Minister inform the House of the measure he intends to take to remedy this situation, which is negatively impacting the central bank?
This is far away from the
You
PNQ.
rightly pointed out, Mr. Speaker.
Far away
This
from
is
the
this is a different question.
Yes. No more question. Then we go to...